Hello, everyone. My name is Lisa Finn, and today I'm going to be doing a training for you on a strategy that personally, as a parent, I have found very useful. It's called the ICE plan, and it is something that I've been able to use easily in my household over the last couple years, and I hope that it'll be valuable for you too. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and then we'll get started. So again, this training is called the ICE plan, planning to respond to problem behavior. Our goals for today's training are to discuss why children engage in negative or problem behaviors, to introduce a strategy for responding to problem behavior, which is called the ICE plan, to review an example scenario related to the ICE plan, and to discuss steps for getting started and implementing the ICE plan in your home. So let's start off by talking about why children engage in problem behavior. First of all, behavior is everything that we do. If it's an action, it's considered behavior. And most people use the term behavior just to describe negative behaviors, but it actually includes all of the set of actions we do all throughout the day, whether those are positive, neutral, or negative. And so the thing is, we engage in all behavior because essentially it works for us. If a behavior isn't working for you, you're not going to continue doing it. And that's something that's called the principle of reinforcement. So a behavior that is reinforced will continue to happen. Another way to say that is that it works for you. So here's some examples. With a positive behavior, if you say hello to someone, then somebody usually responds. If we were saying hello to people and nobody ever responded to you and they just kept walking past or didn't even look at you, you wouldn't keep saying hello to people. A neutral behavior, turning a doorknob. When we do that, typically a door opens unless it's locked. But that is how we open doors, and that is why we keep doing the behavior of turning a doorknob versus standing in front of the door saying open, because that wouldn't work unless it was an automatic door, right? And then a negative behavior example, if I hit my sister to get a toy and then I get that toy often, then I may continue hitting my sister as a means of getting something that I want. So if negative behaviors are occurring, it's important to try to understand why that behavior is working for the child. And that's also called the function. So functions of behavior include the things in the chart down here. So usually people are either trying to obtain or get something, or to avoid or get out of something. So I might be trying to get attention or access to tangibles or things, right? Like the toy example I just gave, or trying to get some sensory stimulation in some way. I also might be engaging in a negative behavior to try to get out of something, to escape or avoid an activity, a demand, a person, or to avoid or get out of sensory overstimulation. So I may be engaging in some behaviors because I'm overstimulated. So if you can start looking at the behaviors, particularly the negative behaviors that your kids are engaging in, and you can think about why they're occurring, then it can kind of help you with what to do with it. And what we do with it, we want to be what is called responding and not reacting. And the strategy that I'm going to teach you today is a strategy that's going to help you be able to respond to problem behavior in your home instead of react to it. So first of all, what's the difference, right? Reacting, first of all, is unproductive. So this is when something happens and you're kind of not prepared for it, and you just say the first thing that comes out of your mouth, right? So it might be passive aggressive, it might be yelling, it might be overreacting. And trust me, I've done this for sure as a parent, especially when I'm not prepared and something happens. But ultimately it's unproductive, and it starts to break down your relationship with your child. So we want to be in this respond category as much as possible because it's productive. We have knowledge of what's happening. It means we have a plan, okay? And it usually consists of teamwork, and you feel a lot more successful. So I love this quote right here. When you react, you're giving away your power. when you respond, you are staying in control of yourself. And that's what this strategy will help you be able to do, is hang out in that respond category a little bit more. Hopefully a lot more. So you are the trainer. You are constantly training your child, whether you know it or not, because of what I explained to you before about that we do behaviors because they work for us. And so the goal that we want to have as parents is that training needs to place responsibility for decision making on the child. And that doesn't matter how young or old your child is. It also doesn't matter whether or not they have challenges like a disability or things like that. We want to raise children who can make decisions, no matter how simple or complex those decisions are. And it helps you because then you are not the bad guy. It doesn't withdraw your relationship with your child. And your child learns how to make decisions and how to accept consequences, which in my opinion is one of the most important life skills that we can teach our children. So the ICE plan, what is it? It is an acronym that stands for instruction, consequence, exercise. So we're going to go through what each of those mean right now. So the I, instruct your child. You're going to give a clear instruction. Short and simple is best. So here are some examples. Go put on your shoes. It's time to do your math work. Brush your teeth and put your pajamas on. And we want to make sure that our instructions are always statements. We happen to naturally give instructions to kids, well, that we intend to be instructions, but we ask them as questions. So, do you want to brush your teeth and put your pajamas on? I don't know. Did you mean it as a question or did you mean it as a statement? So a lot of people think, oh, that's okay, so be firm. No, you can be nice. You just need to say it as a statement unless it is an option and you are asking it as a question. So be aware of the things that you are instructing your child to do and start to think about, am I really asking a lot of these as questions? Because if it's not a question, don't ask it as a question. That becomes confusing for a lot of kids. So again, the I is instruct your child. And then C, you're going to tell them the consequence ahead of time. You want to consider natural consequences first. I'm going to talk more about that in just a little bit. And your consequence should be the same every time. This should not be something that you're coming up with on the spot because that's reacting, not responding, okay? And you want to say it as an if-then statement. So right after you give your instruction, it is time to do your math work, you're going to tell them the consequence. If you don't, then you will not use your iPad for the rest of today. Brush your teeth and put your pajamas on. If you don't, then you will go to bed early. So you give the instruction, and right after that, you tell them what the consequence will be for not doing it. And then the E is exercise. This is absolutely, as a parent, the hardest part. And my little inner cheerleader is just like cheering my kids on, like, please make the right choice. Please make the right choice, right? But we have to wait. We have to allow our child to exercise choice. And then we have to follow through. That's the whole point of this. And the part that is awesome is that because you've already thought about the consequence, it's much, much easier to follow through because you don't have to think about anything on the spot. You just employ that consequence. So if your child follows the direction, then you celebrate. You just let them know how awesome they are, and you give so much verbal praise. And sometimes you attach that with some other kinds of reinforcers or rewards as well. If the child does not follow through with the direction, then you follow through on the consequence. And it's important as it is to have the same consequence every time, it's important to follow through on that consequence every time. So every single time I don't put my pajamas on and brush my teeth, I will go to bed early. Every time, every time, every time. That is going to be so helpful for your kids when you're so consistent with it's the same consequence and it happens if you don't do it. So you might say, you didn't do your math work, so you won't be able to use your iPad for the rest of today. That was the consequence. Next time you can make a different choice, and then you follow through. So it's hard sometimes, and I can tell you from experience as a parent, to do that wait and then definitely to follow through. but this is the teaching component. That is where the training comes in, and you're training your child. And the more consistent you can be with this, the less often you're going to have to do a less desirable consequence for them. And the clearer and more consistent you will be, and your message will be clear. So why does this strategy work? It's because it puts the child against themselves instead of against your child. And it helps them own their choices. It also helps to raise responsible decision makers and reduces the need for yelling, arguing, and negotiating. You get to let the plan do the work, not you, because you set it up ahead of time. And you can do this with children of any age or ability level. I can tell you that I've been doing this with my 2-year-old. It's much more basic than what I do with my 5-year-old. And I don't want you to think that I'm like walking around being this like strict mom all the time, because I'm not. Because I use this plan, I actually get to have a lot more fun with my kids, and it's so much less strict and it's so much less harsh with my kids. And you just have to pre-plan, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, but it works so very well. I have a lot of friends who actually use this, and it is just a strategy that's been so useful in my home, and again, helping us to have more time for fun. So where do you start? Definitely start small. You want to consider things that are the most problematic for you at home and make a list of those things. And I definitely suggest working with other adults at your home to pre-plan for the instructions and the consequences for a few of the things on the list that you made of the things that are occurring that are problematic. You can also make a list of consequences that make the most sense for those instructions, and then consider the ones that you can follow through with. Definitely don't add onto that list for now. You want to work on being consistent with a few things for a while and then add on. So don't do the ICE plan with 10 things to start. Do the ICE plan with 2 or 3 things. And we're not saying, oh, the problem behaviors that are occurring with the other things are acceptable. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is start with the ICE plan for a couple behaviors so that you can get the feel of it, your child can get the feel for it, and you can make sure you're being consistent. If you employ this across, 10 different things that it's occurring in your home, it's going to be really hard for you to be consistent, and therefore you will be less successful with the follow through and being able to use this strategy. Planning your consequences can be a really tough thing, and deciding what you want your consequence to be for not following through on an instruction is a little bit tricky sometimes. So first of all, consequences should create a pause in something that is desirable and should not be overly punitive. So I don't want to, in the example with the iPad, take the iPad away for the rest of the week, right? A lot of times that occurs when we don't have a plan and we're reacting versus responding. So what is natural in that situation? It's something my child desires, and I'm going to pause it for a time. Maybe it's not even to the rest of tomorrow. Maybe it's for 2 hours. And how you decide that is based on your child's developmental level. So younger and children with a lower developmental level, you want your consequences to be quicker and more immediate and shorter. So if you think about a baby, if you have to have a consequence for a baby or a very young child, the only way they're really going to understand that is if it happens immediately and it's short, versus older kids or kids with a higher developmental level. The consequences can be more delayed and potentially longer. So this is where we see kids like high school kids, okay, you can't use the car for a week or things like that. So you just want to make sure that your consequences are not over the top and they kind of are taking into account that developmental level. And if you need some help with that, we're happy to provide more support and brainstorming for you on those consequences. You would definitely want to consider natural consequences first. So some examples would be, if I hit, then I need to be away from other people for a little while. If I make a mess, then I need to clean it up and maybe clean up some extra things. If I don't do my chores, do extra chores. If I don't get up on time, I must need to go to bed earlier. So those would be some examples of natural consequences. You kind of want to make sure that it fits whatever the instruction is. So we wouldn't want to do something like, oh, if I hit, then I have to do extra chores, because those things don't match. So the natural piece to it is what's going to help this be most successful. How to start. I would suggest meeting with your child and explain the problem behavior that has been going on. And then you're going to tell him or her what the plan will be. So what your I and your C and your ICE plan is, so that they know what their instruction and what their consequence will be well before the behavior is occurring. You don't want to teach this right in the moment of when the behavior is happening. If you can talk to your child ahead of time, hey, this has been a problem, here's our plan moving forward, then when the problem occurs in the house, you can employ the ICE plan easily. So let's talk about an example scenario. Ramon loves to be on his electronics. Maybe this is something that you can relate to in your home. It's often difficult to get him to put his devices down to do anything around the house. And it's particularly difficult to get him to come to the dinner table and to go to bed at night. It usually turns into a yelling match with threats to take away his electronics, but it's often not followed through on. So an example ICE plan for this: sit with Ramon. Say, I know you like to use your electronics, but it's taking over some things I need you to do in this house. So we're going to come up with a plan. And then here's your breakdown of your ICE plan. And if you need to write this down on a card when you sit with your child or make a visual of this, absolutely do so. Whatever is going to help it be most clear for your child and help you to be most consistent. Those are the key things. So you might say, I will ask you one time to put your electronics down and come to dinner or go to bed. If you do not, you will not be able to use your electronics the next day. And then the E, allow Ramon the opportunity to decide when it's happening. So this is not going to be in your pre-planned meeting. You're just going to tell him about the I and the C. And then in real life, throughout the day when it's happening, you have to allow him the opportunity to decide. If he does it, you celebrate. If he doesn't, you say, remember, the consequence for that is no electronics tomorrow. Then you'll get a chance to try again. And then the electronics have to go away for tomorrow because that is the consequence that you set up. Now, some of our kids are going to need that with a lot less talking and some more visuals. So this is a way that you could use a visual tool to talk about the same ICE plan. So rather than having a conversation with all of those words, I might be able to sit with Ramon and show him these visuals. So I'm going to post a blank template of this. And it is something that you can put your own pictures on. You can get them from Google Images, or if you want to reach out for some extra support, we're happy to help you with making these for whatever you decide your ICE plan is going to be that you're going to work on. So this is essentially saying the same thing that I just did in the last slide. So I can listen to directions and put my electronics away. So what to do? This is essentially your I. When someone asks, put away electronics. If I do it, yay, high five, and I get maybe to earn some extra time tomorrow on my iPad or my video game. And if no, then no electronics tomorrow. So this is something that you could post. It's something you could use with students or children who are younger. It's also something that you can then help refer back to. It's good for kids who may need more visual supports in order to understand a concept. And so that is something that you could use as well to help you with an ICE plan for those types of learners. Tips for planning for ICE in your home. One of the things that is really helpful, and we do this in my family, is to have a caregiver or parent staff meeting at least once per month to discuss things that have been happening and decide if we want to address those things with an ICE plan. So we want to think about what our current ICE plans are and has everyone been consistent? That's key. And also considering, is the consequence developmentally appropriate? So is it too long? Is it too short? Is it just right? And definitely also, as you're having these little meetings and you're talking about these things, talk about what's going well and praise each other, give each other high fives for being consistent with your ICE plans that you have already been using. and for things that you've been doing really well, and especially being home with your kids during this time. And then also consider incorporating a reinforcer or a reward for following through, for when your child follows through. For some kids, verbal encouragement, those high fives, telling them they're awesome, that was a great choice, all of that stuff is not enough, especially at first. So you could pair that with, a small little treat or anything that works for you, maybe some extra playtime outside. It doesn't have to be stuff that costs money. It just needs to be something that's valuable to your child. So maybe a little extra TV time. It's going to depend on what you are working on in your ICE plan. But I just want you to know that for some kids, they're going to need a little extra motivation to be able to make that choice that's going to allow you to celebrate. And it doesn't have to be forever, but especially at first for some kids. How to reach out for help. The template for the visual that I showed you is provided. And if you need to use visuals and have no way to make them, reach out to your child's teacher. And a behavior resource teacher can help make those templates. We would love to brainstorm with you for your ICE plans. If you're not sure where to start, we're happy to get on a quick virtual call with you or a phone call to help you start to sort out and brainstorm what is happening in your house and how you might be able to use this plan as a tool to help you make some positive progress. So the system for that is to first reach out to your child's teacher, and then your teacher will reach out to district staff or on the behavior group. And then we will set up a way to connect with you either through a virtual platform or via phone. So it's really as simple as just saying to your child's teacher, hey, I'm having some trouble at home with behavior, and I would love a little bit of extra support. And we are absolutely happy to do that. I wanted to show you this reference because the strategy that I taught you about today is from a seminar series that I participated in with a group of my friends called Parenting on Purpose. It's by Dr. Bob Barnes, and it is chock full of gold nuggets for parenting. So if you ever have an opportunity to participate in that, you can look it up online or you can reach out and I'm happy to point you in the right direction. But that is what the ICE plan comes from. Here's this slide again. So if you need some help, this is that process that was on the slide or two before. Again, reach out to your child's teacher, say you need help with behavior. They will reach out to us and we will set up a time to talk with you. Thank you so very much for joining me today and for listening to this training. I have told you before, and I'll say it again, it is something that has been very helpful in my household, and I really hope it can be something that you're able to start using in yours and making some great progress with your kids. Have a wonderful day.